Rainy day.
Thank you for coming this cold, beautiful morning. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. At this time of year, millions of people pay their respect to the men and women of the Canadian Forces who have served and who are still serving today. This great country. Today we're honoring 19 local members that have fallen and given their lives for our freedom. It's important that we remember and we never forget. We will remember them. Thank you.
Could we all rise for the singing of O Canada? And I'm sure the students will help me out. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Oh.
Party, order, hard!
Distinguished guests on the podium, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is the 18th annual Remembrance Road ceremony, and I asked some to forgive me. I think I sent out an email earlier to some of our distinguished guests saying it was the 17th, and that was my typo. This is the 18th time we've been here since the year 2000. On the program, I'd like to note that Deputy Mayor Jerry Last is here in place of Mayor Joe Baptista today, and that Ray Gilroy will be standing in for Zone Commander Ralph McMullen. Thank you for coming. It's been 100 years since 1917, which was a tremendous year in World War I. It's 100 years since Vimy Ridge. It's 100 years since the Battle of Hill 70. It's 100 years since the tremendous battle at Passchendaele. I'd first like to call on Mayor of the Township, Front of Young, Roger Haley.
Cold here, my hands are shaking, I can't hold on to the paper. It's the men and women of the military who served us in the past and now in the present deserve our greatest respect and gratitude. Without their sacrifices, we would not be enjoying the freedoms we take for granted today. So we can go to school, so we can go to work, and play without fear. Without our brave men and women, people of other countries will not be able to enjoy their dreams that our peacekeepers struggle to maintain. Many of us have new Canadian friends who have escaped wars in their own homelands. Wars just don't affect soldiers, but innocent women, men, and children as well. Literally millions of people, civilian and military, have lost their lives over the years during conflicts. I like to think that we remember all of those who have been tragically affected by the wars of the past and the present. Sadly, the wars do not stop. There will always be warlords, terrorists, and militia groups who will cause pain and suffering. We have lost tens of thousands of Canadian heroes in wars and peacekeeping missions around the world. They have fallen fighting to maintain our freedom and our safety. They may be gone, but they're not forgotten. Not only on November 11th, but throughout the year, we must continue to remember them.
Thank you, Mayor Haley. And now we'll hear from Deputy Mayor Jerry Last, the Township of Leeds and the Thousand Islands.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here in place of Joe Baptista, who couldn't make it, obviously, doing another Remembrance Day ceremony. As a former teacher, prior to being a counselor, it brought a tear to my eye when I saw all of these school children walking up here this morning. I thought it was just wonderful, and it literally made me feel teary. And I'm glad to see most of you are pretty well dressed. Thank you. It's an honor to be here. My father was a World War II veteran, and so was my mother. Mom was in the Royal Air Force. Dad was the Canadian Armed Forces. Dad took part in the landing on D-Day, and as he jumped off the boat, his best friend was shot right in front of him. So I was very lucky to have my dad and Mom come home. Enjoy the rest of the day, and again, it's an honor to be here.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Gary Lass. Now we'll hear from our Provincial Member of Parliament, Steve Clark.
Thanks very much, Bud. Distinguished guests, platform guests, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, comrades all. It's always an honor for me to attend the annual Remembrance Road ceremony. It's a wonderful tradition in the village of Mallorytown. And there's no better sight in the days leading up to Remembrance Day than to see the front of young students gathered with veterans and members of Legion Branch 484. A recent survey found the spirit of remembrance shines particularly bright amongst Canada's youth. And everyone who has been involved in a special ceremony over the years should take great pride in that. Because events like this bring home to our young people why the act of remembrance is a solemn duty for all citizens. As Bud mentioned, these memorials of the 19 soldiers and their stories are a reminder to us that freedom is not free. Ordinary Canadians like this year's profiled serviceman, Richard Louis McGibbon, who died in World War I, did something extraordinary. They gave their lives to give us the peace and freedom we enjoy today as Canadians. And as has been mentioned earlier, 1917 was an event that many people have talked to. It's 100 years since the end of the Battle of Passchendaele. Today, 100 years ago, on November 10th, 1917, Canadian soldiers made their final push in a campaign that began a month earlier, and at an incredible price. No fewer than 9 Canadians would earn the Victoria Cross for valor in a terrible battle that claimed over 4,000 of our soldiers, and another 12,000 were wounded. It's amazing to think that as a nation, Canada was only 50 years old. And as they did at Vimy earlier in 1917, our soldiers proved to the world that Canada was a nation to be counted on. And in the 100 years since, the Canadian forces have been there to oppose those threatening to bring the darkness of tyranny to our world. As we celebrate our Canada 150 year, we extend our deepest gratitude to the veterans who so bravely served in the past and those serving today. Their courage and sacrifice earn the respect that people around the world have for Canadians and our Maple Leaf flag. So in closing, I'd just like to remind everyone, as you're here today for this service and services that are taking place in communities like Mallorytown all across Canada, think about the sacrifice that our veterans had for the peace and freedom that we enjoy today, lest we forget.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Now we'll hear from our Federal Member of Parliament, Gordon Brown.
Thank you very much, Bud. MPP Clark, Mayor Haley, Deputy Mayor Last, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's great to be here today, and I want to congratulate the school here in Mallorytown for continuing this tradition of bringing our students out each and every year on the Friday before Remembrance Day. As the Member of Parliament for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes, as I said, it's an honor for me to be here today to help commemorate Remembrance Week here at the annual Remembrance Road ceremony. Veterans Week is a time to remember and honor the men and women who have defended Canada and those who continue to serve today. During this, the 150th anniversary of Canada's Confederation, we also mark several important historic anniversaries. It's the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Vimy Ridge, where 10,000 Canadians were killed or wounded. Just over 100 years ago on Easter Monday, April 9th, 1917, all 4 divisions of the Canadian Corps fighting in World War I, made up of Canadians from coast to coast, began their assault on Vimy Ridge. And this was the first time that all four corps had fought together, and they joined together as part of the Battle of Arras in northern France. And Canadians captured the ridge by noon of that first day, and the last of the German resistance was overcome by April 12th. The Battle of Vimy Ridge was one of the most successful of the Allied offensives to date in that war, and saw the capture of more ground, enemy artillery pieces, and prisoners than any previous action by Canadian or British forces. It was also not only the only site of this significant battlefield victory, it was also one of the bloodiest battles in Canadian history. The Battle of Vimy Ridge remains a key moment in Canadian history. We're also remembering the 75th anniversary of the Dieppe raid, where almost 5,000 Canadian soldiers took part in the ill-fated Dieppe raid on August 19th of 1942 that was designed to test enemy defenses and gather intelligence. And close to 1,000 Canadians died and another 2,000 were captured. It was the bloodiest single day of the war for Canada. We are also remembering, as we've already heard, the 100th anniversary of the bloody Battle of Passchendaele, which began at the end of July in 1917. And Canadians joined the battle in the fall, and on October 26th began the final assault across a desolate landscape of mud against heavy gun and artillery fire. But the Canadians prevailed, and by November 10, 100 years ago today, the battle was over. This impressive victory came at a horrible cost, with almost 16,000 Canadians killed or wounded. We all owe a tremendous debt to our veterans, and this morning and tomorrow on November 11th, please remember our Canadian veterans, lest we forget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. And now I call on Ann Bryan for the recitation to in Flanders Fields. And I understand this is Ann's 18th year coming here to do this for us. Ann.
In Flanders Fields, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel, foe. To you from failing hands we throw the torch. The earth we hold it high. If you break faith with us who die, you shall not sleep, till poppies grow in Flanders Fields.
And now representing the Zone Commander of the Legion, we'll hear from Ray Gilroy, and that'll be followed by the Lament by our Piper, and then the Act of Remembrance by Mr. Gilroy as well. All three items on the program together. Thank you.
Oh, you who sleep in Flanders Fields, sleep sweet, to rise anew. We caught the torch you threw, and holding high we keep the faith with all who died. We cherish too the poppy red that grows on fields where valor led. It seems to signal to the skies that blood of heroes never dies, but lends a luster to the red of the flowers that bloom above the dead in Flanders Fields. And now the torch and poppy red we wear in honor of our dead. Fear not that ye have died for naught. We'll teach the lessons that ye wrought in Flanders Fields. They shall grow not old, age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. But going down to the sun, and in the morning we will remember them.
Enlisted in Brockville on the 9th of February 1916. He was killed on the 26th of August 1918. His unit then being the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, Eastern Ontario Regiment. killed at age 21. Second battalion, killed in action on March 24th, 1945, at age 23, while crossing the Rhine River during the invasion of central Germany. In a plane crash near Borden, Canada, while making weather observations. February 20th, 1942, Ortona, Italy, November 1943, at age 22. Artillery, he was killed in action on D-Day, June 6, 1944, in light infantry, killed in action October 6, 1943, at Palermo, Sicily, at age 21. Killed in action in France, August 15, 1944, at age 18. Buried at Canadian Military Cemetery. Erwin Donovan, Distinguished Flying Cross, Flying Medal, Royal Canadian Air Force. Served as air gunner on a Lancaster bomber and was shot down on April 27, 1944. He's buried at Vierflay-du-Camino Cemetery in France. Private George Henry Howard, the Loyal Edmonton Regiment, killed by a German sniper while on patrol in Italy, February 25th, 1945, shot down in an air battle over Bygstad, Fjord, Norway in February 1945. He's buried in the British plot in Heckland. Flight Sergeant Douglas Moulton, Royal Canadian Air Force, gunner on a Lancaster bomber of 100 Squadron, Glengarry Highlanders, killed in action July 18, 1944 at age 32. He's buried at Bénis-sur-Mer Canadian Cemetery in Normandy, France. Jack Tennant, leading aircraftman in the Royal Canadian Air Force Military Police, on April 22nd, 2006, near Kandahar, Remembrance.
When we see the old cenotaph, we think of people from the past. The soldiers marched across the land for what's right, they took a stand. When the soldiers fought each day in fields made out of mud and clay. We hold the torch so very high, never give up and always try. May our soldiers strongly take the lead, they almost feel like family. In Flanders field that the poppies grow, they remember the poppy shop. For mine and yours and the world's freedom, our captains will bravely lead them. Freedom is important to you and me. It's just not found in history. I got love like the ocean. I got love like the ocean. I got love like the ocean in my soul. I got love like the ocean. I got love like the ocean. I got love like the ocean in my soul. I got joy like a fountain. I got joy like a fountain. I got joy like a fountain in my soul.
Let us bow our heads in prayer. Almighty God, as you have gathered your people together this day in hallowed remembrance, we give you thanks for all who laid down their lives for our sake, and whom you have gathered from the storm of war to the feast of your presence. Let the memory of their devotion ever be an example to us, that we at last, being faithful unto death, may receive with them the crown of life through Jesus Christ our Lord. Our Piper, Sergeant at Arms, and later the color party, if you'd prepare, please, for the march off.